Now ICE is becoming extremely violent and escalating in the city of Chicago. They are threatening rapid responders. They are detaining them. They are abusing them, hitting them, shooting them with rubber bullets, spraying them with pepper spray. This is not, just an issue at this point of individuals who, may not be documented. Anyone who is speaking out against ICE at this point in the city of Chicago is in danger.
Bueno, en el día de hoy me acompaña la concejal de Chicago, Jessie Fuentes, quien es de origen boricua y es una de las voces cantantes de la diáspora puertorriqueña en Illinois, específicamente en Chicago, donde el presidente Donald Trump ha estado amenazando con que va a enviar fuerzas federales militares a desplegar tropas, como ha hecho en otras jurisdicciones de Estados Unidos. Esto bajo el discurso de reducir los niveles de criminalidad. ¿Por qué he invitado hoy a Jessie Fuentes a esta entrevista? Porque como editora encargada de los asuntos de Puerto Rico en el Diario, para mí es importante saber qué es lo que están trabajando, pensando los miembros de la diáspora, no solamente en Nueva York, sino en estados como Illinois, como es el caso hoy, que vamos a estar discutiendo, y vamos a abundar también sobre asuntos de política nacional que afectan no solo a los puertorriqueños en los estados, sino que también afecta a los puertorriqueños en la isla. Fuentes, thank you for being here with us and for accepting this interview with El Diario.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with the profile of the Puerto Rican diaspora in Chicago, because you grew up in Humboldt Park, which is a settlement of the Puerto Rican community in the city. You have been part of many grassroots organizations, so you are activist as well. And I want to know your perspective of how Puerto Ricans under power have changed over the years since you were little until now.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you for having me. As a Puerto Rican born and raised in Chicago, we have always found it very difficult to organize in our city and to be able to claim space. When Puerto Ricans first started settling here in the late 1950s and early 60s, it was really difficult for Puerto Ricans not only to find proper housing, equitable resources and jobs, but just to build community. Gentrification is one of the most rampant sort of experiences that Puerto Ricans have, not just in Puerto Rico, but here in the city of Chicago. Mm-hmm. Today, we have one of the most organized Puerto Rican communities that you will find in the diaspora on a commercial corridor that we call Barrio Borinquen, Paseo Boricua, with some of the largest Puerto Rican organizations across the city of Chicago, representing the Latino sector. We have 5 Puerto Ricans elected to the city council. In Chicago, we have a Puerto Rican chief of staff to the mayor of the city of Chicago and 2 Puerto Ricans in the state legislature. So we have been able to build not just electoral power, but grassroots power, nonprofit power here in the city of Chicago, ensuring that not just the Puerto Rican experience in the diaspora in Chicago is what we have on the agenda, but also the experience of Puerto Rico.
Yeah. How will you compare the Boricua diaspora in Chicago, for example, with the one in New York?
Well, in Chicago, we're a very tight-knit community, right? We call ourselves the Mecca of the Puerto Rican diaspora in the Midwest because we have a very identifying Puerto Rican community. And while we have Puerto Ricans, obviously, that are a part of different partidos or maybe believe in a different future for Puerto Rico as it relates to its status, the one thing that we have done very well in the city of Chicago is to ensure that we have a solid Puerto Rican agenda. So we have a coalition organization that includes Boricuas from all types of political beliefs, ideological beliefs, focusing on one solid Puerto Rican agenda here for us in the city of Chicago, where together we are focusing on housing, on job opportunities, on electoral politics to ensure that we have proper representation. We have a hub in the community and we're very identifiable. Where Boricuas in New York, they're everywhere, right? A lot of Boricuas in New York, but nonetheless, they are very much spread out across the state. We're here in the state of Illinois. Our heartbeat is in Humboldt Park. And we have the 2 largest Puerto Rican steel flags that you'll find anywhere in the world that mark sort of the community that we have claimed.
Okay. How important is for you, as member of the diaspora, born and raised in Illinois, that Puerto Ricans in the diaspora take a stand in terms of the issues that affect or face the Boricuas en la isla, como decimos, ¿verdad? Because there are some people that think that because we are not there, that we don't understand the issues that they face, that we cannot like analyze or add to the discussion because of that issue. So my question is, why is important that the Puerto Ricans in the diaspora take a stand in topics that affect the Puerto Ricans in the island?
Well, I think it's absolutely essential. I think the Boricuas in the diaspora need to understand that our position here in this country allows us to have the social and political capital to impact policy that has everything to do with Puerto Rico. Look, Puerto Rico has a member in Congress that has no voting rights. So all of the policies as it relates to the Natural Resource Committee, which Puerto Rico is in, right? The Natural Resource Committee has jurisdiction over Puerto Rico. It tells you a lot about what the government thinks about Puerto Rico. And so we have to be keenly involved in what it means, not just to make sure that Puerto Rico gets the proper aid that it deserves, but that there is policy in place that ensures that the people of Puerto Rico can be self-determined and determine their own future in a way that their government, the central government of Puerto Rico, cannot determine because it's a colonial property of the United States. And so when I think about my position, for example, as a local elected official, it is my moral responsibility to ensure that the congressional representatives that represent my community and, you know, the committees that have jurisdiction over Puerto Rico understand just how much Puerto Rico needs them to govern on behalf of them. And so I pass resolutions, multiple, throughout the year, raising awareness around the impacts of La Junta, the Fiscal Control Board.
We're gonna speak about that in a couple of minutes, but I don't want to pass without talking about the situation in Chicago right now, because can you give us like a look about what is happening right now in Chicago in terms of the federal deployment? What have changed so far? Because we have seen Trump like back and forth in terms of Chicago or the plans for Chicago. What you can tell us about the situation in the city at this moment that we're talking?
Well, what we have here is a complete overstep of government. We have ICE agents and Border Patrol who have taken over our streets and in our community. In Humboldt Park alone, in the ward that I represent, we have had about 10 to 12 confirmed individuals that have been kidnapped by ICE. Yesterday, if you have watched the news, you would have seen that ICE and Border Patrol took over downtown Gold Coast, one of the richest communities in the city of Chicago. They put themselves on platoons and took over our river. They are going into people's properties and houses without signed warrants. They are snatching people out of their vehicles. People's vehicles are being left in the middle of the street or in parking lots with their ignitions on because ICE is kidnapping individuals. And often we are having a hard time finding where those individuals end up in the system. We had rapid responders who are working to make sure that our constituents know their rights and are being protected, being shot with rubber bullets or being pepper sprayed.
When you say kidnapping, you mean that you don't know where that people is right now? What do you mean by kidnapping?
What I mean by kidnapped is there are people that are being taken by ICE without constitutional signed warrants who have not committed any single crime but are being deported by ICE without just cause. And we often are struggling to even find where these individuals are in the system. And it's why we have a huge coalition of rapid responders on the Northwest side. We have over 200 individuals. When there is a ICE activity, we have individuals go and record the incident so that we can make sure that we're properly keeping track of the individuals who are being taken by ICE. Because again, these are not individuals, as Trump has said multiple times, he's only taking individuals with violent crimes and folks that are danger to our community. He is taking tamale ladies. He is taking small business owners. He is taking families who have been here for 40, 50 years. He is taking mother, father, and children who have committed no crime, but they are being deported because they are Latino without documented status.
Can you ensure that the Chicago police aren't cooperating with the federal agency or will not cooperate? Because I'm aware that the city council was investigating that angle. I want to know a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a welcoming city ordinance that prohibits Chicago Police Department from cooperating at all with ICE. They are to not support ICE in any activity, or they are not to turn over any individual from our custody without any signed warrant. And so we have passed multiple amendments to the ordinance. Our mayor has just passed an executive order that forces CPD here in the city of Chicago to be in uniform with proper badges so that our local police officers cannot be confused with federal agents. There was an incident that took place in June in which we had felt that CPD was cooperating or supporting ICE in a detainment of individuals who have gone to their ISP meetings. That is still under investigation. Since then, we have made many amendments to processes in which CPD responds to federal agents' 911 calls to ensure that there's no further collaboration or cooperation of any ICE activity in the city of Chicago.
Okay. We saw you in a conference in the Puerto Rican Museum in Chicago after the visit of DHS officials to the place. How the Puerto Rican community can do more to serve as a voice for other community, Latin communities or migrant communities, to prevent arbitrary law enforcement or unjust application of the law, because the truth is that, or the fact is that the Puerto Ricans are also facing the challenges of these new policies of Donald Trump's administration regarding migration, ICE raid, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Puerto Rican community here in the city of Chicago and in Humboldt Park has been extremely organized in protecting our Latino siblings. We had several festivals here, Colombian Fest and many others, in which the Puerto Rican community was organizing to make sure that we were rapid responders to protecting our neighbors. We have the Puerto Rican Lawyers Association that have been deeply involved in making sure that we are representing our Latino siblings and making sure that we can provide pro bono opportunities and services to families that may not be able to afford legal representation. We have Puerto Ricans who have been working and organizing with our nonprofit sector to ensure that we are growing the rapid response network so that we can continue to have people that are boots on the ground to bear witness to the kidnappings that we are seeing ICE conduct in our community. But more importantly, we have to stand in solidarity with our Latino community. Today, it is our undocumented siblings. Tomorrow, it is us. These executive orders that Trump is passing, it is to have a lot of racial bias. Individuals are being handcuffed and arrested and taken for being Latino. Okay. And so we have to make sure that we are protecting all Latinos in the city of Chicago, and Puerto Ricans who are born are ensuring that we are doing our very best to stand in the front lines to be in solidarity with our Latino siblings.
Do you have any information about Puerto Ricans being detained by federal agents in the middle of these raids or operations?
Well, it's not just Puerto Ricans. We have had all sorts of individuals detained. What ICE is doing is a serious escalation. What we're seeing here in the city of Chicago, they are now starting to arrest and detain rapid responders, individuals who are going to bear witness and record the arrests that they are making in our neighborhoods. Now ICE is becoming extremely violent and escalating in the city of Chicago. They are threatening rapid responders. They are detaining them. They are abusing them, hitting them, shooting them with rubber bullets, spraying them with pepper spray. This is not, just an issue at this point of individuals who, may not be documented. Anyone who is speaking out against ICE at this point in the city of Chicago is in danger.
Mm-hmm. What is your analysis of Puerto Ricans being detained by federal agency in this raid? Because we are not supposed to be detained because we are not subject to the regular migration processes. Sorry. How you analyze that issue in particular?
Well, I think, not long ago we had an issue with the Puerto Rican veteran who was detained. And we have, individuals either in Puerto Rico or here in the stateside who are U.S. citizens who have been detained by ICE. And again, due to sort of the racism involved with these detainments. Anyone who's Latino presenting or Spanish speaking is at risk. And I don't think that Trump truly cares, right, on whether these individuals are Boricuas or not, or citizens or not. This is an anti-Latino operation, and we have to be able to call it out. What Trump is doing through his executive orders, even through the investment of over $5 billion that he's making in 2026 into Border Patrol and ICE, is because this is an anti-Latino operation, and we have to be able to combat that. I think right now, we see ICE even in Puerto Rico seeking to deport Haitians and Dominicans. We have ICE in every single city where there is large Latino states that claim themselves to be welcoming cities. And so we have to be able to document. I think the thing that's more important now than ever is documentation. We may feel helpless in this situation because people that we love and people in our neighborhoods and people who have been major contributors to our city are being arrested, and in some cases are being disappeared. We have to ensure that we are documenting the injustice, that we are documenting the racism, that we are documenting this anti-Latino operation.
Fuentes, what can the Congress actually do regarding these interventions to prevent arbitrary arrest? Tell me one or two legislations or action that the Congress have taken to deal with this that you think that are important.
Well, I think the first issue to acknowledge is that Democrats or individuals who believe in immigrants' rights do not have the majority in Congress right now. We have, an amazing congresswoman here who represents the Northwest Side, Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, who is the first Guatemalan woman to ever represent the Midwest in the state of Illinois, who is filing constitutional bills all the time, but they don't go anywhere because we don't have the votes. And so I think the thing that we have to really consider is, where are we going in this next electoral period? There is a primary coming. Now, we have to deal with Donald Trump for another 3 years, unless we can find a way to impeach him. But here's the reality is that MAGA has control of the Oval Office. They have control of Congress, and they have control of the Supreme Court. And that is a very dangerous situation to be in. And I think that we have to pay some serious attention to the primary election that's coming up. And if there are not candidates who are talking about immigrant rights, immigration reform, then they are not to be candidates that we need to be supporting. And I think that we need to take very seriously what it means to take Congress back so that we can pass amendments that defunds ICE, that puts forward some serious immigration reform, and that ensures that we don't have federal agents going rogue and harming our communities.
You mentioned before the fiscal board, la Junta, como se le conoce in Puerto Rico. The Chicago City Council have been very vocal in terms of certain issues regarding Puerto Rico or the island, like the status issue, Act 22, la Junta, etc. More recently, you presented a resolution asking for the board to be abolished.
Yep.
How will that be done, and how Puerto Rico will manage the debt in case that happened?
Absolutely. So I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge the damage that La Junta has caused. Obviously, the La Junta that was in place is, Trump fired every single member of La Junta, but the La Junta that was in place was Obama's Junta. And it had put in place very strict austerity-like measures in order to grapple and deal with the debt of Puerto Rico. The people who paid for the debt were working class. I mean, we had schools that were shuttered, people that were laid off, hospitals that were closed down, truly impacting the livelihood, the quality of life of Boricuas on the island. That is not how we resolve for debt. A debt that wasn't caused by the working class, but yet the working class of Puerto Rico has to grapple with that debt. I think that we need to seriously consider the sort of expenses that we have that have always benefited the ultra rich and the prestige of Puerto Rico, right? We have to think about how are we creating infrastructure that serves the people of Puerto Rico and does not make them pay the price for this. La Junta is not the answer. First of all, the people who staff La Junta don't live in Puerto Rico and do not understand the sort of intricacies and nuances of living in a colonial island. And so if we are going to have an advisory board or an infrastructure of individuals that are going to seek to create financial plans to deal with the debt, they cannot be hedge fund owners, corporate owners, rich individuals that are also getting a profit for being on La Junta. I mean, the executive director of La Junta was making more than some of the highest paying corporation owners on the island. That is unjust, and it's quite criminal. And so I think that it's important that not only do we abolish the form of La Junta that was passed under promesa under the Obama administration, but I want to be clear, in this moment, it's more important to abolish La Junta because Trump's version of La Junta will be even more dangerous.
So, okay, but Congress has a responsibility in this topic. And my question now is, why do you think Congress hasn't acted to at least amend promesa law in the past few years?
Well, no, I think that, we have to take a look. Look, I didn't support promesa on its first iteration because I did not think that that was the answer to the sort of fiscal crisis that we were seeing in Puerto Rico. I think that we need to rethink altogether the issue of the finances of Puerto Rico, not just amending a law that has proven to not be effective. And so when we are thinking about sort of the financial crisis, we need to hold those accountable who put us in this place. But I mean, let's be honest, right? There are corporations that have helped Puerto Rico be in this sort of crisis that are not Puerto Rican corporations. And so we need to look at the receipts of how we got here in the first place and create a plan that allows the people who have put us in this place to be able to pay forward that debt. What we are doing right now is harming the people of Puerto Rico. People who did not put us in this place in the first place.
You mentioned the layoff of 6 of the 7 members of La Junta, like 1 month ago. What do you think is behind that decision?
Well, I think Trump has found himself another opportunity to enrich his friends. We have to be looking very carefully on the appointments that he's going to be making to La Junta. The sort of financial interest that they have, the corporations that they run, how they may be taking advantage of the tax loophole that we see in Puerto Rico, how they would leverage their position on the junta to be able to do so. Look, what Trump did with this last budget in Congress was the biggest robbery we have ever seen in the history of our government. Taxing working class by giving tax cuts to the richest people in this country. Let's not be confused. Trump will do the same with these positions of La Junta.
So you don't have any hope that this will mean like savings for the Puerto Rican people?
None.
Okay. Do you support the lawsuit that presented 3 of the 6 members that were laid off? What do you think about that lawsuit?
I'm not too familiar with that lawsuit, so I wouldn't be able to give an opinion.
Okay. Is the status issue dead in Congress right now?
Yes, I think, a couple years ago, we had been working extremely hard on the self-determination bill of Puerto Rico, which sought to create a process in which Boricuas can participate in determining their own future, and where there would be a binding referendum that Boricuas can actually vote on. Right now, when you vote on status for Puerto Rico, it's, statehood up or down, yes or no. And it's not a binding referendum. And so people of Puerto Rico are not truly engaging in a process of self-determination. Obviously, that had been watered down through many different sessions. And we did not have the sort of viability, the votes to push that forward. It is not a conversation nor a topic that we are going to allow to die. I think that right now what we are looking at is how do we close the loophole in Puerto Rico, because the tax loophole has caused some serious gentrification on the island. I mean, if you go to Puerto Rico, you begin to bear witness of the privatization of beaches, of multi-million-dollar mansions being built on the beachfronts, of sort of the privatization that we are seeing of El Yunque today under the leadership of Jennifer Gonzalez. So right now, I think that there is some specific focus on closing the tax loophole in Puerto Rico, ensuring that Puerto Rico has food sovereignty, and to ensure that we are protecting Puerto Rico from future disasters. I mean, Hurricane Maria shook the island of Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico did not get the aid that it needed to truly rebuild itself. Now, those natural disasters are common for an isla like Puerto Rico, and we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place for Puerto Rico to survive any future natural disasters. So right now, I think there are some very specific things that we need to be focusing on that I believe can make a difference in Puerto Rico, while we are rebuilding this campaign for self-determination to truly allow the people of Puerto Rico to determine their future as it relates to their status.
What do you think? I'm curious. What do you think about the proposal of leaders in the island and in the diaspora for a transition to independence through executive order?
Well, I think, look, I am independentista, and I believe in the independence of Puerto Rico, but I am not one to impose status on the island of Puerto Rico. I truly believe that Puerto Rico deserves an authentic, robust, and comprehensive self-determination process that allows the people of Puerto Rico to determine their own future. Not one bill, not one executive order should determine that. I think that the people of Puerto Rico have their right to determine what their future looks like. It's why I support the self-determination bill. It's why I believe that every status should be well-resourced. Right now, the statehood party has the most amount of money to be able to spread their sort of vision for Puerto Rico through different forms of propaganda. While, el Partido Independentista no tiene el mismo dinero, and so we cannot sort of educate people the way they should be educated. And, there's obviously this conversation around free association. And what does that mean for the language of Puerto Rico, for the flag of Puerto Rico, for the Constitution of Puerto Rico? And I think we need to be able to draft, discuss, articulate what each status would mean, educate the people of Puerto Rico, and create a binding referendum that allows the people of Puerto Rico to decide.
Could this initiative be useful to generate more discussion about the topic among Republicans, for example?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, look, there are Republicans, obviously, who have different sort of takes on what Puerto Rico should be. I talk to Republicans who think Puerto Rico should be a state. I also talk to Republicans who don't want anything to do with that, right? And I think that Puerto Ricans come from both sides of the aisle. We have Puerto Ricans that are Republicans, we have Puerto Ricans that are Democrats, and we have individuals from both sides of the aisle who have supported both Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican diasporas, and it should be a discourse of both parties. But again, it should be an investment for the people of Puerto Rico to determine their own future, one that is not imposed.
But is it viable? Because at the end of the day, ¿verdad? Puerto Rico is a territory subject to the plenary powers of Congress.
Yes.
So the executive order will be ¿es útil?
It's a symbolic piece of order, right? Congress must make a decision, and I don't think that any executive order that the presidents will put forward is viable nor can be implemented.
Bueno, ahí escucharon ustedes a Jessie Fuentes, concejal de Chicago, puertorriqueña, quien ha seguido de cerca todo lo que tiene que ver con los operativos de las autoridades federales en Chicago. Y bueno, Jessie Fuentes, muchas gracias por el tiempo, gracias por contestar todas mis preguntas y seguiremos en contacto.
Gracias, que pase linda día.